a phase 3 readout of 2,221 patient trials together, intro 1 and intro 2. That's a big step for the company forward to getting Vidofludimus calcium ready to be launched and ready to be submitted for approval to the FDA.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Immunic CEO, Dr. Daniel Vitt. Daniel, a very happy new year to you. 2025 was a busy year for Immunic. If you had to sum it up, what were the most important clinical milestones that moved the company forward?
Yeah, happy New Year, Stephen, as well. So 25 was an exciting year for us, specifically following the data readout of our phase 2 clinical study, the CALLIPER study, in patients with progressive MS, with maybe in simple words, a 31% reduction in time to 24-week confirmed disability worsening in PPMS patients or primary progressive MS patients. And maybe most important uh, point here, a 34% reduction of confirmed disability worsening in those PPMS patients without baseline gadolinium lesions, which shows that this drug has really a neuroprotective effect, which is amazing here and really a step forward for all patients suffering from multiple sclerosis.
I mean, looking at that phase 2 CALLIPER data, why is it particularly significant for the future of MS treatment?
Yeah, I think, look, MS patients' biggest issue is change or worsening of disability over time. And that's driven by two processes. One is an inflammatory, and one is a process which is independent of relapses and inflammation. And obviously, by Nurr1 activation, vidofludimus calcium has the opportunity to do both, to really and nicely shown in the CALLIPER study, to really slow down the disability progression, which is independent of the relapse activity. And that's also an effect where patients with relapsing forms of MS will benefit from.
You also reported long-term open-label extension data from emphasis in relapsing-remitting MS, with most patients free of disability worsening after several years. What does that tell you about vidofludimus calcium's long-term potential, Daniel?
Yeah, this is exactly the point we made before. So there's a link, or there's a little bit of a common pattern here between the CALLIPER data and the open label extension data from our emphasis study. So in that study, we have seen after 144 weeks that still 92.3% of the patients remain free of 12-week confirmed disability worsening. That's very good. And another effect, and that is underlining this effect on progression independent of relapse activity, is that from the events until week 144, these were 29 events. 13 events were defined as relapse-associated worsening, whereas only four, which is 13.8% of those patients had PIRA, so progression independent of relapse activity. So it also shows that in these RMS patients, the patients seem to benefit by really reducing PIRA substantially.
Beyond MS, you strengthened the patent position for vidofludimus calcium and shared intriguing GLP-1 findings for IMU-856, with possible applications both celiac disease and weight management. How did these developments broaden Immunic's strategic opportunities, Daniel?
Well, the patent runtime is always important. We want to maintain exclusivity as long as possible for the drug, with the PMS patent here potential leading into 2041, showing us that there is a nice huge window of 12, 13, 14 years of exclusivity for the drug expected in the different MS markets. On IMU-856, I think it's also it was a nice, interesting, and surprising finding that IMU-856, which was tested in a phase 1 study, also in a couple of patients with celiac disease, that biomarker data from these patients from the study has shown that over time you see a dose and time dependent increase of the natural GLP-1 levels in the patient samples. That shows that the gut health is important in general and is also reflected in a relax or an increase in GLP-1 levels, as an incretin example.
Looking ahead to 2026, enrollment in the phase 3 ENSURE trials is complete. Top-line data expected by the end of the year. What should investors and patients be watching for from that readout?
Yeah, that's maybe the most important data coming. And not just for Immunic as a company, more for patients, given the high unmet need in multiple sclerosis, with hundreds of thousands of patients not treated worldwide, with a huge market potential. The MS market is expected to grow to 30 billion until 2030. And a phase 3 readout of 2,221 patient trials, together, ENSURE 1 and ENSURE 2. That's a big step for the company forward to getting vidofludimus calcium ready to be launched and ready to be submitted for approval to the FDA.
What else could make 2026 transformative for Immunic, Daniel?
Well, it's overall, I think it's driven by the phase 3 data next year, or this year, sorry, we are in 26 now. So it is really driven by that data readout. So what we are also doing is we are preparing for the NDA submission. On the one hand, the team is working already on this. We are also preparing the company for launching commercial sales in 2028, based on a positive approval decision by the FDA, and later time points also by European agencies. So it's everything is focused on that right now within the company. Of course, we have more really groundbreaking research ongoing, and we will keep the market updated if there's something else coming out from that end.
I look forward to more conversations as the year progresses. Thank you very much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Stephen.
That's Dr. Daniel Vitt, the CEO of Immunic.